Okay, this one is song composed during Ludding time, Watch and Ward. And the tune is The Tyrants of Old England. So how it's written, the chorus, it's not the way that I know it, so I'm just going to do my own because that is my artistic license. Come, all you gallant heroes, to these few lines attend, and when you meet a brother, make freedom with your friend. If you love your wife and children for to have a happy life, you'll never take a gun in hand to fight against your wife. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. When you see your children starving, you would wish their bellies filled. But if you chance to speak a word, the soldiers must you kill. To see them naked before you will disturb you in your minds. When children 3 years old can say, I wish there better times. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. Like prisoners we are all kept up, our work it is so hard, and when at night they let us loose, they make us watch and ward, to guard those redneck turkeys that pulled us down so low. When you meet a working man, his face as white as snow. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. If you go into the poorhouse and there lay down your case, they'll call you idle vagabonds and turn you out of place. Or if you ask for money, they'll bid you to be gone. Go along, you idle vagabonds, for here you shall not come. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. Now we're brought down to poverty, to sorrow and distress, and when at night we go to sleep in bed we cannot rest. We must never be no better till the victory is won. Don't you see provisions are kept up by bayonet and gun? You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. Our clothing it is all worn out, like beggars we do stand, while they're eating of the best with ruffles down to thand. And when they get their bellies full with necks so red they'll swell, we'll make them rue that very day they worked us by a bill. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. These local militia, they are pretty lads indeed. Their masters dare not keep 'em up, nor with them dare proceed. Nor with their guns they dare not trust, for fear they should turn. Because they know they've done amiss, you've had too little corn. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. Ye tyrants old England, your time is near an end. I'll have you to undraw your purse and all your money spend. Likewise your feathered pheasants that's leathered up to knees will make their £1 notes to fly like ballads in the street. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done. Now I'll conclude me ditty, here's health to them that's good, and all true-hearted subjects that's made of patriots' blood. May God send them prosperity until the cause is won, and protect those gallant heroes that make the pheasants run. You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run. You may be brought into account for what you've sorely done.
So, welcome everyone. You've just heard from Jennifer Reid, the Langley Linnet herself, also known as Lancashire's premier broadside balladress. And I'm Dr. Mike Sanders, Senior Lecturer in 19th Century Literature at the University of Manchester. And we're here today to share with you some of the findings we've made as part of the Piston Pen and Press project, which is an AHRC funded project looking at ways in which industrial workers in Northern England and Scotland engaged with literary culture during the 19th century. And we're particularly pleased to be doing this as part of the Festival of Libraries, because local authority libraries have been absolutely crucial to the research that we've undertaken in this project. So many local archive and libraries have rich and important archival holdings, and one of the things we're looking to do in the project is to make the existence of those archives much better known. And this is particularly the case for the wonderful Thameside Local Studies and Archives Centre in Ashton-under-Lyne, which is where I first came across the two writers I want to talk to you about today. John Stafford, also known as Jack Stafford, also known as the Charleston poet, and Joseph Chapman. So the first poet I want to talk about, John Ogden Stafford, born in 1790, died in 1852, known to his friends as Jack, but as I'm not been introduced to him, I'm going to refer to him more respectfully as John throughout my talk. He's also known as the Charleston poet. Now, we know quite a bit about John Stafford thanks to this wonderful book, which I hope you can see there, written by Keith Philip Stafford, who is a direct descendant of John, born exactly 100 years after John's demise. And this book is absolutely packed with great details, really interesting details about John's life and his times. And it also reprints the words to the songs that I'm going to be discussing today, including the one you've just heard from Jennifer herself. And that song was called Song Composed During Ludding Time, Watch and Ward. And it appears in a collection published by John Stafford in 1840 entitled Songs, Comic and Sentimental, which was printed by the Chartist printer and bookseller John Williamson. And it's an intriguing title, so I want to start with that, because whilst it's definitely a collection of songs, and there are a couple of comic numbers directed at the local Southcottian, the followers of Joanna Southcott, who were a prominent feature of Ashton in the 1830s and 1840s. There's nothing sentimental here. In fact, we've got a sequence of songs which deal with the major radical and working class political and economic mobilizations of the 30 years following on from the Napoleonic Wars. There's songs which deal with Luddism, with Peterloo, with the Queen Caroline affair, with the 10 Hours campaign for factory reform, with trade unionism, and with Chartism. So they're not really comic and sentimental songs. And I do wonder if the title is a rather cheeky attempt to persuade unwary buyers to part with a few pennies in order to buy the song, and then for them to be rather surprised at what it is they're actually getting. So that first song, Song Composed During Ludding Time, Watch and Ward, is a song about Luddism, a movement of largely handloom weavers in the early part of the 19th century, really protesting against the coming of industrial machinery and the threat which it posed to their own livelihoods. We normally associate Luddism with the West Riding of Yorkshire and Nottinghamshire in particular, but the Greater Manchester area was also a key centre of Luddite activity, although it's less well known than its counterparts in Yorkshire and Lancashire. The song is sung to the tune The Tyrants of Old England, which is also known as the Handloom Weaver's Lament, composed by John Grimshaw. And that song contains the lines, "You pull down our wages shamefully to tell, you go into the markets and say you cannot sell," and also has a chorus which warns, "You tyrants of England, your race may soon be run, you may be brought unto account for what you've sorely done." So the use of that tune, I think, suggests already Stafford's sympathy with Luddism. Now, clearly, he can't express that sympathy openly in this song, as Luddite-affected areas were practically under martial law at the time of the Luddite unrest. You know, the local yeomanry, the local soldiers and militia were actively involved in trying to suppress Luddism. And we can also deduce Stafford's sympathies by the way he set up the song, by the way the song is framed. In particular, the irony of the third verse, in which those factory workers who he describes as being imprisoned in the factory during their working hours are also expected to provide a free security service to guard the factory from Luddite attack when they're not working. So there's a kind of double form of slavery in here. And they're doing all this for the benefit of those red-necked turkeys, as he calls them, the puffed-up mill owners who actually own the factories and who are kind of exploiting the workers within. And the song is organised around a number of contrasts which are familiar to radical verse. The masters are well fed, but the workers are starving. The workers weave the cloth, but the masters wear the clothes. The workers work hard, but they have nothing to show for it. Indeed, the song says things are so bad that the masters actually need the militia to keep any kind of social order. Don't you see provisions are kept up by bayonet and gun? He asks the workers. But the song ends by reminding the workers of their collective power. The Luddites acting together have become a band of gallant heroes that made the pheasants run, that kind of scatter the masters before them. And it's to this celebration of collective power in the form of trades unions that we turn to next. And Jennifer's going to sing another of Stafford's song, simply called Miners.
So this song is called Miners. The tune is The Banks of the Dee. It's a good one, good one. Come all you brave miners of high and low station, attend to my ditty and soon you shall hear. You men of the brave, now such men in this nation, when you are united, none with you compare. You can stop all the spinners, you can stop all the weavers, and tyrants of all sorts, you can stop all deceivers. Likewise that railway you can make 'em to leave it and fly o'er the seas to some foreign country. So come my brave miners and never be daunted, join the trades union while life does remain. Stand up for your prices, for your men that's ill wanted. You work with more danger than men on the seas. Assist one another as long as you're able. Be steady and true like those knights at Round Table. See how Swift was cut off and others disabled. His children may weep and his widow may mourn. See the number of miners been cut off before him, and cripples been made with that dangerous trade. While you're working for bread, you're not sure of one moment of coming back safe to your dear families. There's many's a brave miner's gone to his work late at midnight, been brought home again a dead corpse before daylight. Many poor little Wagners suffered the same, boys, both widows and children their mothers may mourn. I came into Ashton one fine Sunday evening, when Swift, that brave miner, was laid in his grave. Peter said and was scarce able to walk by the corpse side, a short time before, whose life he had saved. Such a funeral before by no pen can be written, from his house to the grave scarce one word was spoken. The knights at the Round Table seemed quite full of trouble, the band played so deep and the miners did mourn. May God send prosperity to all the brave miners, protect those little wagon boys that works underground, that splits down those works which keeps us from starving. There's no better men in this world can be found. Let us join our trades union, both firm boys and willing. For a penny a week you will receive 10 shillings. For to bring back those prices they've taken so unfeeling, bad luck to those tyrants for the deeds they have done. Let us drink to the memory of all the brave miners, including those poor souls that suffered in Hyde, for it was well known that through their employers may all such like tyrants as them be destroyed. Let us join our trade union with small contribution, but still bear in mind, lads, the French Revolution. And the tyrants will tremble when you first accuse them of those deadly groans that they've caused to be done. Let us join our trade union with a small contribution, but still bear in mind, lads, the French Revolution. And the tyrants will tremble when you first accuse them of those deadly groans that they've caused to be done. I could sing that last part over and over and over.
So that was Miners by John Stafford, and this is an intriguing song to me for many reasons. We don't know exactly when it was composed. It has to be written after the coming of the railways because they're mentioned in the song, so it's after 1825. It also mentions two miners, Swift, who was killed at the pit itself, and Peter Seddon, who was badly injured and it appears saved by Swift's heroism. Now, I've been through the British Library's digital newspaper archive and I haven't been able to find trace of either Swift or Peter Seddon in connection with a mining accident, and nor have I been able to find any reports of a mining accident between 1825 and 1840 in the Ashton-under-Lyne area, except for two accidents in Haydock Pit in 1831 and 1832. But as I say, neither of those accidents mention Swift or Seddon. So if there's anyone listening from the local history group who likes puzzles, here's a mystery for you to crack. And if anybody can make any progress on that, identifying either Swift or Seddon, please let me know. I'd be really interested to know a little bit more about those two. Now, one possible lead, and I stress this is only a possible lead, is the fact that in 1830, Lancashire miners formed the Friendly Society of Coal Mining with its headquarters in Bolton. And this is a kind of embryonic attempt to unionize miners in the Lancashire and Cheshire coalfields. And I'm wondering if that might be the union that's referred to in the song, the union that Stafford is encouraging his listeners to join. And I wonder about this for a couple of reasons. There are a couple of references in the song itself to the Knights of the Round Table, a kind of reference to Arthurian legend and that idea of the chivalric brotherhood of the Knights of the Round Table who kind of bind together for the common good. And it was certainly the case that friendly societies in the 19th century frequently adopted antiquarian names. For example, there's the Ancient Order of Shepherds and Shepherdesses, and also the Ancient Foresters, both of which were very important friendly societies in Ashton, certainly operating in the 1840s and the 1850s. I think the Ancient Order of Shepherds actually published a quarterly magazine which contained kind of poetry and writing by Ashton residents as well. So possibly it's a reference to that particular friendly society. Also, that reference to you pay in a penny a week and you'll receive 10 shillings might be a reference to sick benefits, again, which would be the kind of service that would be provided by a friendly society. Although I have to say again, in the context of the song, it might also be a reference to the union's attempt to reverse pay cuts, to bring back those prices, says John Stafford, which the masters have reduced. So possibly a friendly society. It's certainly the case in the song that Stafford is clear about the dangers of coal mining. Miners, he says, run greater risks even than sailors. They have to live with the knowledge that they set off for work every day, knowing that they might not come home alive. And if you just look at the really chilling records of mining disasters and mining accidents in the 19th century, many of which you can find online, a number of mine history societies have recorded those accidents in great detail, you'll see that Stafford is not exaggerating, that the loss of life and the regularity with which accidents, fatal accidents occurred is truly horrifying when you read it. It also contains a very early recognition of the importance of coal power in the new industrial economy, a recognition that steam power in particular is literally driving the wheels of industry. And in verse 1, he says to the miners, remember, you can stop all the spinners, you can stop all the weavers, you can even stop the railways. So Stafford is suggesting that there is a latent power which workers possess if they can only come together and organise collectively. And the next song that we're going to hear is another of Stafford's songs in which he attempts to turn the workers' economic importance into political power, this time via the Chartist movement.
So this is the Radical Juvenile song. The tune is Roslyn Castle, but I just couldn't get my head around it in time. So beautiful tune though. So I've put it to the Rosemary, which is a canal song. Still works. It's good. You radical lads, wherever you may be, come and dance at our balls, let us be merry and free. With our sweethearts and wives may we always agree, and assist one another in sweet unity. Like brothers we will meet and we'll join hand in heart. We vow to each other we never will part. Then the tyrants will tremble and the traitors will flee. Yonder the juvenile lads shouting sweet liberty. So then tune up your fiddles, our time is but short. We'll dance and we'll sing and we'll push on our sport. Our balls they are open and free for the poor. No physical force shall stand guard at our door. We are not like those tyrants, our conscience is clear. These religious people that are weighed down with fear, they have powder and ball, sword, bayonet and gun, for to guard their ball dancing, and they still call it fun. Here are the middle class people, you know this I'm sure. They are full of delusion and they trample the poor. When you've paid all your earnings for victuals and clothes, there's not 1 out of 50 that will give you their vote. But against you they will run, you know very well. To a Whig or a Tory their vote for to sell. I can read their names over from door to door. Then the middle class people are rogues to the poor. You must still bear in mind brave Frost, Williams and Jones, how they dragged them poor fellas away from their homes, from dungeon to dungeon, both night time and day, to a ship filled with convicts for to cross the wide sea. And now they are gone, it still troubles me mind. So deceit in these middle class people I find. May the time soon arrive that they shall be set free. Yonder the juvenile lads shouting sweet liberty. 10,000 times over I have wished in me breast that the slave and the tyrant were equal in rest. Then the sun would shine clear and burn all bitter weed. Our gardens would flourish with liberty's seed. We are kept down with taxation, policemen and spies, and tyrants of all sorts and traitors with lies. But that bad class of people, we will banish 'em away. Yonder the juvenile lads shouting sweet liberty. With sweet peace and plenty we will dance and we'll sing. Our wives shall be crowned as well as the Queen, and those children shall sing that have been starving for bread. Our bellies are filled and the tyrants are dead. The dark day of danger is approaching, I see, when the higher and middle class people shall flee. Then we'll dance at our ball with our hearts full of glee. Yonder are the juvenile lads that brought sweet liberty. I will finish my song to the lads of the brave. I was born in the year 98, poor white slave. On the 5th of December, me parents did say, I'm advancing in years, I must not long stay. But while I am with you, I am merry and free. Neither a Whig nor a Tory shall ever turn me. When I close me existence, then carried I'll be with those juvenile lads that shout sweet liberty.
So that was Radical Juvenile Song, a song celebrating Ashton's Radical Juvenile Association, a society of young Chartist activists in the town. And this reminds us, of course, that Ashton was a staunch Chartist town. Robert G. Hall, in his wonderful history of Chartism in Ashton-under-Lyne called Voices of the People, estimates that 2/3 of Ashtonians signed the 1842 Chartist petition. So 2/3 of the town were effectively supporters of Chartism. For those of you unfamiliar with the Chartist movement, it was essentially a movement for democratic rights in the 1840s and 1850s, and its charter or petition was organised around 6 points. A demand firstly for one man, one vote, and it was sadly one man. Women weren't included at this stage. Secondly, a request for a secret ballot so that workers could not be intimidated by their landlords and employers when they voted. A call for equal-sized constituencies, so each MP was returned by a similar number of voters. Fourthly, the abolition of the property qualification, so you didn't have to be a landowner to be an MP, making it possible for working men to become MPs. Fifthly, the payment of MPs, so that again working men could afford to be politicians. And finally, annual parliaments, which the Chartists called for not because they were a fan of elections, but because they thought that annual parliaments were the best way of keeping MPs honest. That if you said you were going to vote for something and you didn't vote for it, or you said you were going to support a policy and you didn't support it, your constituents would have the right to recall you within a year and say, no, we elected you to do a particular job for us, you didn't do it, you're out, we want somebody else. Now, of course, at the time, the Chartists were denounced as dangerous extremists who were threatening the entire basis of civilization in the country. Their leaders were vilified to an incredible degree in the press. They received kind of harassment. Many of them received imprisonment for their activities. And of course, subsequently, they're found to have been right and reasonable, and all of their demands, with the exception of annual parliaments, are now accepted as absolute fundamentals of any democratic system. So, Ashton's Radical Juvenile Society. This is a song that is set to the tune of Roslyn Castle, which was a British marching tune sung by both sides during the American Revolutionary War and often played as a memorial air during military funerals. So there's a kind of military association here. And the song turns on the contrast between Chartists and their middle class opponents. And in particular, Stafford is interested in what he sees as the hypocrisy of the middle classes. He says, for example, physical force shall stand guard at our door. Now that's quite a clever joke that Stafford is running at the time. The Chartists were frequently accused of being supporters of physical force, of being supporters of the use of violent methods to attain their ends. And, you know, it is the case that there were some violent outbreaks during the Chartist period, in particular an attempted uprising in Newport in the winter of 1839-1840, which is also referred to in the poem. And there was also violence in 1842 during the general strike. And in a sense, there was an implicit threat of violence in the vast numbers that the Chartist movement sought to gather. But Stafford is also making the important point that it's rather hypocritical of the middle classes to accuse the Chartists of being violent when they're the ones with the police force, when they're the ones who call out the militia, when they're the ones who use the army whenever workers assemble and try to defend their rights. And I think he's also alluding to the fact that the middle classes also kind of employed, as it were, bouncers, as we would call them today, to ensure that their own social events weren't disrupted by, you know, the Chartist oiks and scruffs, again, as the middle classes would see them. He also points out to his audience that the shopkeepers are happy to take your money. They encourage you to shop in their shops, but they never vote for your candidates when it comes to election time. They vote for the candidates of the middle classes and the landlords. And again, I think he's alluding there to a Chartist practice known as exclusive dealing, where Chartists tried to persuade their supporters only to shop at shops where the shopkeeper was prepared to vote for Chartist candidates at elections. There's an interesting insight into the way in which Chartism tried to bring pressure to bear economically at a local level. There's also a reference in this song to Williams, Frost and Jones, the three leaders of the Newport insurrection, the Newport uprising, who were subsequently arrested, put on trial on a charge of high treason, which carried the death sentence at the time. It was one of the last remaining offences for which not only were you hung, but you could be drawn and quartered as well. And they were actually found guilty and sentenced to hanging, drawing and quartering. But a strong campaign persuaded the government to change the policy to transportation. And so they were transported to Australia for life, although in the later 1850s, the government announced that those three Chartist leaders could return to the UK if they wanted to, and John Frost indeed did come back to the UK. But I also want to draw attention to the fact that this is a song about having a good time. It's a song about dancing and singing and conviviality. And equally importantly, it's a song which celebrates the wives and sweethearts of those Chartists who don't get much of a look in elsewhere in Stafford's songs, it has to be said. And those convivial occasions were an important part of Ashton Chartism. There was at least one big annual event, which was the celebration of Henry Hunt's birthday. Now, of course, Henry Hunt, revered by the Lancashire Chartists and Lancashire radicals more generally. He, of course, had been the spokesperson, the spokesman at Peterloo. He'd been the main figure on the platform at Peterloo. And the Chartists held a big celebration, a big anniversary dinner to celebrate his birthday every year. And this was always a big occasion in Ashton. And we know from reports in the Northern Star, the leading Chartist newspaper, that it was an occasion at which Stafford's songs were sung, particularly his Peterloo songs. But there's always at least one Stafford song sung on the occasion of Henry Hunt's birthday. And this is a reminder to us that Stafford fulfilled an essentially bardic role within his community. He was a kind of keeper of the community's collective memory. And memory is the key word here, because one of the remarkable things about John Stafford is that he couldn't read or write. So he composed these songs in his head. He had to remember them in his head, and the songs were written down, and this is in the preface to his book, the songs were written down by friends and admirers towards the end of his life, and that's how they came to be preserved and to be collected. So what we have here is a really valuable link to the oral tradition, which otherwise would have been lost, and it's preserved thanks to the efforts of, the local library there in Ashton. Without their work keeping this heritage safe, we would no longer have it. So the final song that we're going to hear from Jennifer is another song which celebrates conviviality, sociability, and also Chartism, and it's Joseph Chapman's Billy Boy's Shop.
So this one is Billy Boy's Shop by Joseph Chapman. Really good on this. I'm just going to read it so you get the full benefit. Come all you young lasses, both handsome and pretty, and all you young lads, so wise and so witty. In Mosley sweet village I'd have you to stop, for there are all things for money in Billy Boy's shop. There are rings for the ears and rings for the wedding, and paint for the stoops and quilts for the bedding. There are drugs of all sorts that will cure the pain that lurks in the bosom that loveth in vain. There are fiddles and flutes and razors and bristles and sprig bits and drums and little tin whistles. Then the boy that's a penny may come for a top to hum at the door of great Billy Boy's shop. There are thimbles and skizzers and clogs and red leather and tidy clog patterns to wear in wet weather. So if you will pop in this wonderful house, you will find all you want in the crack of a louse. The tables are covered with paper and journal. You may read of the fool, of the cit and the colonel. There are books of the law and fine books of great knowledge and books that were never in Manchester College. You may read of O'Brien and Fergus O'Connor, those great men of state and those great men of honour, while pictures above you that hang on the wall will show you great wonders far greater than all. You may read of the loyal and true patriotics. You may read of the vile and the haughty despotics. You may read of the poets from Homer to Pope and of Sir Isaac Newton with his great telescope. You may read of the wonderful French Revolution and also of Brookbottom New Institution. And if you political talents possess, in Billy Boy's shop you can read the Express. The pastors and masters will go there a-reading to show their fine wit and to show their fine breeding. And close to the door, if you'll peep through the grate, you'll see in the cellar the great men of state. There's sweet lemonade, there's coffee and pellet, but I cannot tell you the price how they sell it. But if you would know, you had better go see. You may drink a whole year and not drunken you'll be. Were I a young mortal that courted a woman, I'd not go to town, now it's got now so common. But in that identical house I would stop to treat my young damsel at Billy Boy's shop. Great drapers and druggists, with all their fine buildings, may boast and may gabble and talk of their gildings. But one that is weary of unmarried life, in Billy Boy's shop they can buy a new wife. He has tools that will extract a tooth in a minute, when he's been in your head a most shocking bad tenant, and things that will show you exact to the sight when your wife is not doing that thing that is right. He'll sell to you powders a penny a packet, you have nothing to do but to buy it and take it. He has long neck bottles to suckle a brat, and pills that will purge till there's nought left but your hat. Come all you young lasses, both handsome and pretty, and all you young laddies so wise and so witty. When you travel through Mosley, I'd have you to stop, for there are things for all money at Billy Boy's shop.
So, Joseph Chapman, we know, was born in September 1827, and his parents had him baptised at the Methodist New Connection Church in Mosley on the 2nd of January 1828. So in 1848, aged 20, he published the rather grandly titled The Poetical Works of Joseph Chapman, which was published and printed by J. Brierley and Sons of Stalybridge, so another local printer, presumably with Chartist connections. So I like to think that given that Joseph would only have been 20 in 1848, that he might well have been a member of Ashton's Radical Juvenile Society that we heard about in an earlier song, and might even have heard Stafford singing his songs on numerous occasions, particularly on Henry Hunt's birthday. In the preface to his poetical works, he describes himself as a calico weaver and also as a poor bard. And he emphasizes the fact that he composed a number of these songs as he was working at the loom, that he would, as he was working at his machines, he would kind of be whistling and singing tunes to himself. And this is the occasion for the formation of these songs. They come out of that working experience. And the song we've just heard, Billy Boy's Shop, is a rollicking 15-stanza patter song about the delights and the various things that can be found in Billy Boy's shop. And just as a sample, here's from verse 2. There are rings for the ears and rings for the wedding and paint for the stoops and quilts for the bedding. There are drugs of all sorts that will cure the pain that lurks in the bosom that loveth in vain. And he goes on to say, there are fiddles and flutes and razors and bristles and sprig bits and drums and little tin whistles, and the boy that's a penny may come for a top to hum at the door of great Billy Boy's shop. So it starts with that kind of early delight in consumerism, the kinds of things that you can buy as a result of the advances in manufacturing that are being made at the time. And then as now, people like shopping. It's a great thing to do. But as the song progresses, it becomes clear that Billy Boy's shop serves other functions within the community as well. So it's not just a place you go to do your shopping. It's also a coffee shop. It also serves a grand variety of teetotal drinks. And it's also, crucially, a Chartist newsagent's. So it's a place where you can go to read and buy your Chartist newspapers. And those things often come together. The coffee shop, which is also the news agency, the teetotal drinking establishment, because of course you wouldn't need a license from the local authorities who might be hostile to you if you're a Chartist, don't need a license to serve non-alcoholic drinks. And so in verse 7 of the song, we hear that you may read of O'Brien and Fergus O'Connor, those great men of state and those great men of honour. Now, Fergus O'Connor was the preeminent leader of the Chartist movement with a huge and faithful following in the Northwest. And O'Brien is a reference to Bronte O'Brien, a veteran radical, formerly the editor of the Poor Man's Guardian during an earlier reform campaign in the 1830s, who was really known as the sort of foremost intellectual and theoretician of the Chartist movement, who was called the Chartist schoolmaster. The Chartist schoolmaster because he was kind of so good at explaining the aims and objectives of the Chartist movement. So you go to Billy Boy's shop to find out what O'Brien and O'Connor have to say about recent events, about national events. But you can also go to Billy Boy's shop to find out what's happening locally. So the next verse gives us a truly audacious and fantastic rhyme, which I'm sure must have had his audience kind of falling about when they first heard it. He tells us, you may read of the wonderful French Revolution and also of Brook Bottom's new institution. And I just love the way in which that event of kind of world historical significance, the French Revolution of 1789, is connected to the opening of a new institution, probably a mechanics institution or reading room in Brook Bottom. And it just gives us a kind of flavour of life in Ashton in the late 1840s. And it also reminds us, I think, of just how firmly integrated within the local community the Chartist movement was. The Chartist movement was not a kind of alien imposition on the people of the town. It was a kind of organic growth that had been nurtured over many years. Stafford's songs give us the kind of backstory from Luddism onwards. It identifies the various streams that feed into Chartism. And Chapman's poem reminds us that, Chartism just takes its place alongside shopping, alongside drinking, alongside courting, alongside gossiping, as one of the things that you just do on a day-to-day basis. And it's that rare insight into kind of everyday working life in the 19th century, which is so valuable and which in a sense we can only access through this kind of material, through these kinds of songs, through these kinds of records. And the truth is, we'd know none of this if these two volumes hadn't been preserved by the local library and archives service. So it seems only fitting to me that we should have a libraries festival to celebrate the sterling work that local libraries do the length and breadth of the British Isles. So to all the staff of the Thameside Local Studies and Archives Centre in particular, a huge thank you from Jennifer and myself for the great work that you do preserving local history and culture. Thank you.